First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Martin Niemöller. Good evening, everybody. Wow, it's been a weird couple of days. My son was sick yesterday and today, so I look after him. Things are good now. I need to finish setting up something because I totally forgot to do that, so I'm going to do that right now while we're watching. So just bear with me while I'm doing that, and we'll go get ready to do our usual little intro. And things are a little bit more hectic to get things ready. Hi, Sudi Granite. How's it going? And I'm doing this setup just so I can make sure that I actually see people and talk with them if they're in chat. So let's go ahead and transition, see what I mean. All right, got that ready. All right, so with the thank you, Sudi Granite. On with the usual intro stuff. Since it is the first video of the month, I will do my thank yous and disclose just any donations I received. So I work with full disclosure and transparency. Oh, I gotta update that to 20 months. Ha. You can always donate to me via cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is one of them. You can always check the transactions of any Bitcoin with an address. And of course, these two were from me going to CZ Dawson when she needed it. And this was taking money out of my Patreon when I closed it up. Vertcoin, my favorite cryptocurrency of choice, but no donations through there. So 20 months and nothing there. You can donate to me via Google Super Chat, and for I didn't get any Super Chats for December, but no, January of 2020, but that's okay. A lot of people, well, not a lot, but a good amount of people donated to me over a year. Almost a year, and just thank you to all of them who have done so. You can also donate to me via paypal.me, and I'm going to show you that right now, but I've got to get that so I can hide the name. I didn't received one in January and February. The same person, Meyer Mirror, you know who you are. Thank you very much. And so that just kind of helps me get by. I don't have a job anymore. I'm kind of like, my wife said, I'm like a house husband now, kind of. But I'm trying to make my way, but also try to figure some things out to, how do we defeat the systematic forces of corruption, say that. And so we got to figure out a way. All right. What else is there? Oh, I'll continue on and get rid of that white background. I need to hotkey that. If you don't have any money to donate, you can always do so. Globe Earthers can prove Globe Earth, and of course, you would think that was done by now, but you can get $15,000 out of it by just getting it from Zen Garcia, and maybe donate to me a little bit, a 10% finder's fee. That'll go a long way for me. Join the Flat Earth People Finder, zoomtruth.com. Get involved, and you can always join any of my live streams by calling in or just joining on video itself. It's always in my YouTube description box. I'm also streaming on BitTube, I think, and I'm also streaming on Vim.tv, which is through Steemit. You can't watch it on Steemit anymore after the live stream's over, but you can see the Zoom meeting details and how to join from there. And if you want to join, you can just ask in the chat, and I will put the link in. Okay, so this is let's just start off. This has kind of been, I don't know, it's hard to start off. All right, so I've been looking through a lot of mythologies. Latest one is Korean mythologies, because it's something that I'd like to visit because, well, my parents' lineage is from Korea. So I wanted to take a look there because I've kind of looked at a lot of different mythologies, and there's a lot of similarities between them. And this kind of it relates in some ways, this topic, because I watch Geeks and Gamers. I used to watch not Amazing Atheist, but Andy Warski was his name, and I did a video a long time ago, March 11, 2017, basically about what whoever Amazing Atheist, what his name is, but he did a thing. I ended up watching that and commenting on it, and it's a one-way thing. But I also noticed that in a lot of these feeds that are in YouTube, the recommendation engines and whatever, it does go to a lot of, maybe just majority of YouTubers are white, but it's just white people. But a lot of the stuff that they talk about, I agree with. One of them is Computing Forever. I think he's also Dave Cullen's show. I don't really watch Overlord DVD, but I kind of have, just because Dave watched him, and a lot of leaks have been coming from him. And his sources, Critical Drinker, has kind of gotten really popular. But they've all kind of started to, they're against the go woke, go broke, the crowd. I love Awakening. No problem. Just started getting, what would you call it? I guess whiny? Is that a term? About what's going on with their shows and Hollywood and whatnot with the if it's called SJW movement, just the cultural appropriation of stories where there were white male leads, or not even leads, but just now they have a whole bunch of replacements with minorities and stuff like that. This stuff has been going on. Has it been over a century? Maybe not quite yet, but almost a century now. The other way, reverse way, and you never hear it from these guys about it, and it's still going on. It's just that they're also starting to reverse the trend to Hollywood and I don't know, what do you call it, media, I guess, entertainment media. And now they're starting to be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. And what came to me is the Martin Niemöller, who is a German theologian and Lutheran pastor. And he's the one who came up with that big famous quote. First they came for the socialists, etc. And it makes sense. Like, I don't like to take sides anymore. The left-right paradigm, the polar oppositions, especially if they were created by those who are in the establishment, the control narrative, control systems, whatever you want to call it. And instead, my focus is on the control system itself and fighting against them. So it just basically the only way to kind of fight them is basically, through unity, combining forces. And I think what's interesting with the Korean mythologies is the mythologies point towards creation through combination and not creation through division. I think that was a term that I saw in one of the articles, and I think that's good. I mean, division really just. I mean, so many ways to talk about division. I mean, but division is pretty destructive, and it's hard to create anything with the divisive type of mentality. But we could go on and on about many things in regards to that. That's similar. Now, what's interesting is here's an origin that I kind of wanted to read, which is kind of good, and this is all going to tie in later on in the video. So he made a confession in his speech for the Confessing Church in Frankfurt on January 6, 1946, and this is just a partial translation. And it goes, "The people who were put in the camps then were communists who cared about them. We knew it. It was printed in the newspapers. Who raised their voice may be the Confessing Church. We thought communists, those opponents of religion, those enemies of Christians, should I be my brother's keeper? Then they got rid of the sick, the so-called incurables. I remember a conversation I had with a person who claimed to be a Christian. He said, perhaps it's right. These incurably sick people just cost the state money. They are just a burden to themselves and to others. Isn't it best for all concerned if they are taken out of the middle of society? Only then did the church as such take note. Then we started talking until our voices were again silenced in public. Can we say we aren't guilty responsible? The persecution of the Jews, the way we treated the occupied countries, or the things in Greece and Poland and Czechoslovakia or in Holland that were written in newspapers, I believe we, confessing church Christians, have every reason to say mea culpa, mea culpa. We could talk ourselves out of it with the excuse that would have cost me my head if I had spoken out. We prefer to keep silent. We are certainly not without guilt fault. And I ask myself again and again, what would have happened if in the year 1933 or 1934 there must have been a possibility. 14,000 Protestant pastors and all Protestant communities in Germany had defended the truth until their deaths. If we had said back then is not right when Hermann Göring simply puts 100,000 communists in the concentration camps in order to let them die, I can imagine that perhaps 30 to 40,000 Protestant Christians would have had their heads cut off. But I can also imagine that we could have rescued or would have rescued 30 to 40 million people, because it is what is costing us now. Now, whether you think the established history with World War II and all that is correct or not, I mean, it is still pretty much true. Whether it's I see the entire side of the white people who are talking about the cultural reflections and the vandalism occurring, where they have these typically white characters, especially like the leads and stuff, being replaced by non-white characters. Well, we've had that for a long time with the whitewashing in film, and it happens for so long. I mean, this list is very long. You can go and look through it on your own time, and it doesn't list all of it, and there's just more even in the latest, even 2020, 2019, 2018. There's a lot. There's probably ones in here that aren't in this list, and things that are a little bit surprising to me that I didn't even know of, and many people don't know of either. And there's going to be an article where I'm going to read about some people didn't even know either. For me, I mean, like, not only is there whitewashing, but just a white savior in film, and that has always been a big thing that I've always noticed. And for me, it doesn't matter to me. It's just a hero's going to be some color or some gender, whatever, right? Hero, heroine. But the trope is to have a white savior not saving just, where the white race or something. It's always they're going somewhere else and they're saving the natives there, which is kind of ironic since it's it's always been the white conquerors that are not saving the non-white natives. But anyways, let's not worry about that part. That was just your ancestors. It wasn't necessarily you. So, I mean, these are great movies. Glory, one of my favorite movies. Dances with Wolves, one of my favorite movies. I like Last Avatar. A lot of people liked Avatar. Last Samurai. And some of these are okay movies. Some I didn't watch, but like Gran Torino, I thought it was okay. It wasn't that great. Finding Forrester, Amistad, But still, they also have a whole list of movies where you've got the white savior stuff. Latest one that I recollect was like Matt Damon going to China. Free State of Jones. I remember watching that, and just it goes on and on and on, and it's. It'll be interesting if any of these YouTube content creators will talk about the non-white savior trope that's gonna happen, if it is gonna happen. But not only do we have a white savior narrative in film, we also have a non-white bad guy in film. In the 80s, I love the 80s action movies, and you always had the white hero, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Jean-Claude Van Damme, whatever. Basically, if you were a big 80s action fan, they're always going against bad guys, Russians, Chinese, South Americans, especially communists, Cubans, Soviets, and Chinese. So they've always had that. Now they're reversing the script. They like to reverse things, but still they're still also doing the same thing. The whitewashing, the white savior narrative. They are even actual non-white legacies they're making a mockery of, and the latest one was which I never watched, Quentin Tarantino, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's something I didn't really think it would be that good. And Quentin Tarantino, he's off and on. There's some films I like, some films Now in that movie, they have Brad Pitt fighting Bruce Lee, and Bruce Lee is acting very cocky, saying some things that he would never say, and the fight comes to be a draw, but basically Brad Pitt wins. And so Shannon Lee, which is Bruce Lee's daughter, took it to heart to really speak out about it, and no one who's here, who I mentioned before, the white content commentators, whatever. And it's not about race. Don't worry about it. I'm not hating you guys. I agree with pretty much 90% of what you guys say, 99 maybe even. But they never talk about these things on their shows. It's like, it's only when it occurs to them. It's like, well, it's occurring to them, and they're speaking out about it, but it's happened time and time again in reverse, and they've never talked about it. I think it would be great if they started talking about it, and we can have a conversation whether we should have this. What does it mean for art? Freedom of expression, and should we not allow these things, or should we allow these things, or do we really get toxic or whiny or angry at when it crosses some type of line or boundary. Do we make that line or boundary? And it's a tough call, and I'm going to read in an article that does a pretty good job of covering it, and I'm probably also going to play back a couple of the videos that I listed and just kind of go over some of the things I agree with and disagree with. So in this, Shannon Lee said, "It's disheartening to see your father portrayed as an arrogant blowhard because in truth, as an Asian American in 1960s Hollywood, he had to work much harder to succeed than Booth and Rick Dalton, Leonardo DiCaprio, the fictional white protagonist of the film." Now, remember, his first movie in the United States, the Enter the Dragon. He couldn't be the standalone star. He had to have a white actor to share the lead role with, and of course, the bad guy was going to be an Asian Chinese guy. So just keep that in mind. "I can understand all the reasoning behind what is portrayed in the movie," she said. "I understand that the two characters are anti-heroes, and this is sort of like a rage fantasy of what would happen. And they're portraying a period of time that clearly had a lot of racism and exclusion." She added, "I understand they want to make the Brad Pitt character the super badass who would beat up Bruce Lee, but they didn't need to treat him in the way that white Hollywood did when he was alive." A representative for Tarantino didn't immediately respond to a request for comment Monday. Shannon Lee said Tarantino might be trying to make a point about how Lee was stereotyped, but it doesn't come across that way. It comes across as an arrogant asshole who was full of hot air, she said, and not someone who had to fight triple as hard as any of those people did to accomplish what was naturally given to so many others. Shannon Lee saw this film Sunday. It was really uncomfortable to sit in the theater and listen to people laugh at my father, she said. She said that her father was often challenged and tried to avoid fights. Here, he's the one with all the puffery, and he's the one challenging Brad Pitt, which is not how he was, she said. She continues her father's legacy through website BruceLee.com, her Bruce Lee podcast, and Bruce Lee Foundation, which hosts summer camps that teach children about her father's martial arts and philosophy. "What I'm interested in is in raising the consciousness of who Bruce Lee was as a human being and how he lived his life," she added. "All of that was flushed down the toilet in this betrayal and made my father into this arrogant punching bag." She said she understood that many characters in the film are caricatures, but noted the film didn't make fun of Steve McQueen, who was played by Damian Lewis. She also pointed out that while the Green Hornet ran from 1967 to 68, her father's hair and sunglasses are reminiscent of his look in the 1970s Enter the Dragon era. She said she didn't take issue, however, with Mo, the serious Bruce Lee fan who plays in the film. She said he did a good job with some of her father's mannerisms and voice, but I think he was directed to be a caricature, Shannon Lee said. Anyways, there's a lot of history with Bruce Lee. I was a big Bruce Lee fan growing up, and reading his stuff is fascinating, and what he had to go through, not just from a martial arts standpoint, but of a breaking into a culture that didn't accept Asians. And there's still a lot of that. I mean, if you look at American sports, mostly dominated by white, black, and Hispanic, but not necessarily Asians. Asians, for some reason, get overlooked a lot. But I think most Asians, they really don't care about that stuff anyway. So, I mean, that's just kind of how, as a culture, most Asians really are. It's just, it is what it is. Doesn't matter to me. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and play back some of these videos. And there's a good article, How Cultural Appropriation Crushes Hollywood. There's a lot to talk about here. I mean, this is a conversation that should be had across aisles, and the ones who's perpetuating all of this aren't the fans, aren't the viewers. It's the ones in control, the ones who really push a narrative, and everyone's yelling at each other about basically at each other and not really at the hand that feeds, really. So Yeah, let me look at the chat real quick and switch it over. City Granite, 100% correct. Bruce Lee would snap Brad Pitt in 200 or 300 pieces. Eye Level Awakening, finding this day and age in light of global deception media's obvious complicity that we are still giving a fuck about anything they do. Race is such a tool for the masters, yet we still let them play us. Correct. So alright, so I'm gonna shut up for a little bit, play back these videos, and talk about it. Actually, what I'm probably gonna do is I'm gonna pause it when there's something that I want to chime in about.
Today, I'm going to draw some parallels between several major franchises that have all gone woke recently. You may notice a particular pattern between all of them. On Star Trek Discovery, Michael Burnham is basically a glorified retcon. She's inserted into Spock's past, and apparently she helped influence him at a young age and made him the great Spock that we all knew and loved in his later life. Spock couldn't be great all on his own. He needed the help of Michael Burnham, and without her, he wouldn't have become the legend we saw in the original series and the films. John Connor was...
And that is true. They just kind of retconned that in. It'd be fine if the original Star Trek knew, they had references to his sister that influenced them or something like that. And I think what my... the ones who complain about it, like, I don't watch Star Trek Discovery. I know what it's going to be about. I know I'm not going to enjoy it because I'm just a classic Star Trek Next Generation fan. Deep Space Nine even a little bit. Didn't get into the Enterprise that much. Now, I think it would have been okay if Burnham was actually written in a good way, and I think they probably wouldn't have minded that it was kind of shoehorned in. It's more about the story that I care about. I think most people care about. So if the story is good, yeah, it doesn't matter who plays the character. And if the acting is good, it's also almost not non-existent either. Especially if the character is played in a good, positive way, right? Not as some horrible caricature, I guess you could say, with like the Bruce Lee in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. One of the things that I did not realize was in Aliens, what's her name? The Vasquez. I mean, I thought she was Hispanic. She really wasn't, the actress that portrayed her. But Vasquez, the actress, did an awesome job in her role as playing Vasquez, even though not at all Hispanic. One of those things like, hey, I didn't even know she wasn't Hispanic, but she did a good job in that character. I liked her. If any of the characters, like all the characters in Aliens, because Aliens was such a good movie, I enjoyed it. If any of the characters were written for a specific race and played by a different racial actor, like I couldn't care less. It was just good, and all the actors and actresses were just good. So why would I care? It's when, I guess, it's the current thing that today is like, they're gonna reboot Aliens, and then Sigourney Weaver is gonna be played by a white male character, and then they're gonna have Newt as a little African boy, or Vasquez as some Chinese trans woman. It's just like, it doesn't make sense. You don't need to reboot the movie in the first place, and second, you don't need to replace the identities, which doesn't really matter, and any of that stuff. So it's one of those things that is kind of worth a talk.
Once the central figure of the Terminator franchise, almost like a prophesized messiah.
The white messiah trope.
a future liberator of the human race from the oppression of the Skynet machines. But in Terminator Dark Fate, the most recent Terminator film, young John is brutally killed, and he's usurped in his role as savior of humanity by a young woman of color named Dani Ramos, a female illegal immigrant. Doctor Who was
I just think that's funny. I think that it's kind of dumb, you know. Find a better way to replace John Connor. But you know, JC, Jesus Christ, whatever. It's also been, you know, whitewashed, I guess you could say, in American culture. He's Arabic.
always a male, and by
Well, at least in the written history.
changing the character to a female,
Which the historicity isn't there quite yet, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
it alters and complicates the nature of the Doctor's relationships with other characters past and present. For example, we know that the Doctor was a father and indeed a grandfather. He's also had romantic relationships with women. And though it was possible for Time Lords to change their gender, the reason it was done in this day and age is obvious. Feminism. Wokeness. Just
And I hate it when they use feminism, because feminism wasn't always this way. It's always been changed again, and they're talking about, well, isn't feminism about just the equality of rights, of freedom? It's like, yeah, that's what it was, but today's feminism isn't about that. And then, so you can't bring back what was right in the first place, you know. They always reverse and make everything upside down. And people play along. They fall into this whole deception, like I Love Awakening is talking about.
like with the Star Wars message about the Force being female, apparently on Doctor Who, we can only hope that the future is going to be all girl.
As she says, is the future going to be all girl?
We can only hope.
This change to the Doctor being a female seems to also coincide with depictions of white men being terrible. As Critical Drinker recently pointed out in the 11th series of Doctor Who,
fun though it was being forcefully re-educated on such diverse topics as white men being racist, white men destroying the environment, white men being women for some reason, white men brutally dividing ethnic communities, white men being deadbeat dads, and of course, white men burning women alive because they're secretly gay.
indeed, and
Well, all races probably have done all of that. And even portraying media, before the white male has been done that, like it's been done to the white male now, and they're complaining about it. But it's been done to non-white males ever since now. You know, they don't get it. It's just so funny. They're complaining about it now because it's happening to them now. But if they think about it, who were all these losers in the past? Oh, wait, non-white males. Huh. I guess we had it good for a long while. Now it's reversed.
I would add to that you can't empower the female characters by dragging down the male character.
I agree with that. You don't drag down anybody, go get up higher. That's easy to see.
The Doctor should have remained male. If the writers wanted a strong female character in the primary lead role, they should have created an entirely new female character in a new Doctor Who spin-off series.
I agree with that. It's like you're taking the legacy of something that was there and totally reversing it, and you don't need to do that. You'll see it a lot you're probably gonna see it a lot in Marvel superheroes. Comic book, you see it a lot. A mythology of like Thor is Thor, but then you can take on the mantle of Thor, but you'll be called Thor even though that's not your name. It's obviously wasn't your name until you were Thor. You didn't wear the costume, you didn't have the powers, etc. You know, it's like the mantle of Batman is slightly different because anyone could don the mask in the costume of Batman, and that's fine. Train as Batman. most people are going to be like, well, I think Bruce Wayne, he's the Batman, and he always will be, just like Captain America. It's always the first Captain America, not like the second or third. All of that stuff. But now it's getting to be a little ridiculous. We just see women, and it's always been white women, but that might change now, replacing white men, and just flipping it and taking on the mantle of whatever it is, instead of just creating a version that's similar or identical, or maybe even upgraded version, right? Maybe there's a reason why say Doctor Who wasn't able to handle things, and therefore there's another type of Doctor Who that was able to adjust better and just become the next generation part of it, right? But they don't. They just totally replace it. They and shoehorn in like entire history and revise it. And if they're doing that with just media and shows and movies, they did it in written history, folks.
Anyway, in this recent 12th series of Doctor Who, we learned that the Doctor believes becoming female was an upgrade.
Don't be ridiculous, Franklin. I've read the files. The Doctor is a man.
I've had an upgrade. Hi.
Now...
Well, see, not that type of upgrade. Talking about like a character upgrade. Someone that comes in and helps out, learns the ropes, understands like that there's, have an arc. One of the things that I loved in comic books and stories in general is when a bad guy character switches sides to the good side, realizes all the stuff that they were doing was wrong, and they realized the folly of it, and now they want to try to be good. And the main hero can't do some of these things, and so the hero that steps in is able to accomplish things that the main hero couldn't. And then the main hero goes, I think you're more worthy of wearing this, taking on this mantle than I am. I think it's time for me to step down and you to take my place. I think that's a great arc. And being the main hero, becoming more of the mentor. It's like, you're able to do what I couldn't, but you know what? Here's some advice if you want it, type of thing. And, can still come into the aid. And it's like, basically it's like, I'm retired now, but here, I'll show you a little trick, and makes things easier for the new hero or upgrade person to do things. And that's kind of how it always has been, instead of that's kind of how life is, right? It's not like all of a sudden Asian Ebon Kim has an upgrade, and now it's like a white female Ebon Kim saying it's been an upgrade, folks. Now I can use the Force. It's always been like I have to train somebody with whatever knowledge I have. Hopefully they can do things better than I could, and can accomplish things better than I could. And that's how it works, And so all of this weird stuff that's going on in the current narrative, they're seeing it too. Everybody probably is. And it just can be done better, because you can't really relate when this happens.
We learn that the Doctor has previously been a woman of colour in some previously unknown regeneration from the past, thus retconning the character's history. And also, I've previously mentioned the following. There's a diversity agenda clearly going on. The character of MJ, Spider-Man's love interest, has always been a natural redhead, but in the latest films, she's played by a black woman, an actress by the name of Zendaya, and she's a fine actress. However, this is a depiction of the character that obviously isn't true to the original source material.
Now, I think when you're changing the source material, I agree with that. It shouldn't happen. The actress who plays MJ now, even though she's black, does a good job still. Doesn't matter to me. I think an easy way to have resolved this is don't have MJ. It's just a completely new Spider-Man. You can do whatever you want with it. You can have Peter Parker have another crush that was after MJ or before MJ or whatever. Oh, thank you, Grant Jarvis. $2. And good night, I Love Awakening. Hi, Kathy B. How's it going? So let's keep going.
I don't believe that Kirsten Dunst was a natural redhead, but she played MJ as a redhead in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies because in the comics and the cartoons, MJ was a natural redhead. Now we have a new live-action Little Mermaid.
I wonder what he would have thought if he's worried about just redheads, if black MJ dyed her hair red, would he be okay with that? I don't think so. That's not about the red hair.
From Disney, and the character of Ariel is being cast with a black woman. Why is this happening to my people? I'm Ginger. I'm a fair-skinned, freckly, redheaded...
Hear that? My people, I don't know, he probably means it as a joke. But it matters to him because now he's noticing that there's similarities to his facial features or hair or whatever. And that's, I think, one of the fallacies that people have is, it's the whole idea of revolution being about freedom and not honoring agreements which you had no participation in. No one enters this world getting to choose which race they are, how good they get to look, how wealthy their parents are, because I think most people, if they knew, they would probably want to be the most handsome or beautiful person they can be, were born into the wealthiest family, into a time where a certain race has more options, I guess, than others. So it's like taking pride in one of the things that irks me is like, I'm proud to be Asian, or I'm proud to be white, I'm proud to be black or Hispanic, whatever. You had no choice in what you were born into. You can't be proud of that. That's the dumbest thing ever. Or I'm proud of how pretty I look or handsome I look, or you had no choice in that either. If you want to be prideful of things that you actually accomplished, things that you were able to do something with, right? Not something that was handed to you. Like, I'm proud that I'm wealthy because I inherited it all from my parents. That's the dumb type of proud. A good type of pride is like, I'm proud that I was able to, get myself out of poverty and, into some form of wealth or something like that, and be able to get others to do that too by starting a foundation or something. That's something that you can be proud of. Or maybe if you did inherit something from your parents and became wealthy and you used that wealth to create foundations to help others who aren't, that's something you can be proud of. But just having something that you had no control over and being proud of that, I think that's just dumb.
Man with green eyes and no soul. I've had to deal with the lack of a soul my whole life. The rest of you have soul privilege, by the way, so please check your soul privilege. As a person of ginger, I feel uniquely qualified to ask the question, why is the movie and TV industry erasing my people in their works of fiction? Redheads represent only 2% of the world's population, and we're apparently an endangered species.
Yeah, they show up more than Asians, who are probably, 80% of the world's population? So yeah, you're probably lucky to be ginger if you want to work in Hollywood. Just saying.
I take this very personally. It's deeply offensive. Also, people say things like, "Who cares? It's just a fictional character, bro."
And that's what most people now that are white have been saying when there's been depictions of Asian characters replaced by white actors and actresses. It's like, it's just fiction, bro. The whole thing is ironic and hilarious to me because it's just it's happening to another. They're just gonna keep switching the whole thing.
But notice, they only say this when the character is being changed from white to black. But if a tradition...
No. It's always been said. You guys just never listened or didn't care, or you guys are the ones that were saying it when it was from black to white, or Asian to white, or Hispanic to white, or Indian to white, or Native American to white. Whatever it was always the opposite, and you guys were like, it's just fiction, bro. Just relax. Now it's happening in reverse. It's like, it cracks me up.
Traditionally black fictional character is...
It's not like I'm happy about it, because this is it. I'm laughing at it because it's funny and ironic. But if we see an injustice happening, in one side, we need to be empathetic and say, hey, if it was reversed, would I feel the same way, or did I behave the same way, or was I a jerk or an asshole? And it's like, maybe I should have said something about it then. Maybe I'll say something about it now. It's not good either way, right? It's not like racism is a one-way street. It's like, dude, just because you're black doesn't mean it's okay to be racist. Or, dude, if just you're white, just because you're white doesn't mean it's okay to be racist, type of thing. It's not okay to be racist at all. So, yeah.
Changed to a white person, then it's racist, right? You're not going to see T'Challa from Black Panther recast with a white actor.
Not now, maybe, but probably a few years ago, maybe a couple of decades ago, even they would have done it. No worries, they've been okay with it. But now since it's happening in reverse, yeah, it's probably not going to happen. I mean, look at Son Goku. People who are fans of Dragon Ball Z. They made a live action movie of Dragon Ball Z, and they cast a white actor as Son Goku. But everybody else, I think, was the right race. Son Goku was a huge Japanese manga character, and Hollywood made him white. He was bigger than Black Panther, way bigger. I mean, Dragon Ball Z, more people read Dragon Ball Z than Black Panther comic books. But yeah, they done it. They're still doing it, and you get no outrage. You go, it's just fiction, bro. Just relax.
The left would be outraged, understandably so. They'd be very upset. That's the hypocrisy I can't stand, and I wouldn't want that to happen.
And I hate it when they point to the left, because it's not just the left. It's just the left and the right and the centrist, whatever. It's just the establishment. It's just the control system there. They don't care if they're left or right or whatever. They just say whatever. And again, I think it's perpetrated. I wonder if people like him are just part of it, is just, hey, let's just spur on this little left-right, male, female, white versus non-white type of thing, because they always seem to not address the underlying problem, and the underlying problem isn't the differing factions. It's the ones who are dividing people to become factions against each other. Is a lot of people who are really actually woke understand that the system is there to divide people. They'll use whatever it takes. There's always the wealth difference, the gender difference, racial difference, class difference, educational differences, whatever differences you got. They go, hey, that's a dividing line. Let's pit them against each other. Political differences, all of that. Religious differences, everything. Just find something different about someone else and make sure that they have something to hate each other for, because then they'll just hate each other, focus their hate on each other, and not necessarily positive energy used towards fighting what's actually the underlying problem of everything.
Happened to that character. I've actually grown to quite like T'Challa, and I wouldn't want him depicted any other way. The following is a recent article from the BBC. Is it time for the all-white period drama to be made extinct?
BBC. Why?
The popularity of the genre has
And BBC is more right than they are left, so he should be blaming the right as well.
traditionally been made an
He's not going to blame the right. What he should actually be doing is blaming the control system, the establishment type of thing, right?
obstacle for black, Asian, minority ethnic performers who have been excluded from lead roles. But this may not hold much longer, writes Hannah Flint. Period dramas have served as the backbone of British cinema and television ever since the first films began production at the tail end of the 19th century. But more often than not, these productions have had one major similarity: an all-white cast. Well, actually, that's possibly because such productions have attempted to go for historical accuracy. Britain was once much less diverse than it is today. One of the major limitations for black, Asian, minority ethnic performers in the UK has traditionally been the industry's obsession with constantly doing Dickens, Shakespeare, and Austen. As Dr. Miranda Kaufman, historian and author of Black Tudors, The Untold Story, points out, productions based on how they were originally conceived by the author will only ever have other ethnicities in minor roles, she continues, or in no roles whatsoever. However, filmmakers have become increasingly more imaginative in their interpretation of these texts. So sorry that the classics and some of the most important English literary works of all time were written by white authors in a time when Britain was entirely ethnically homogenous. Denying this truth is historical revisionism. Last year, the BBC's version of Victor Hugo's Les Miserables featured David Oyelowo and Adil Akhtar in the lead roles of Inspector Javert and Monsieur Thénardier, while its latest Dickens adaptation, co-produced with FX, A Christmas Carol, recast the Cratchits as a mixed-race family, and this week sees the UK cinema release of Armando Iannucci's The Personal History of David Copperfield, which has Dev Patel playing the eponymous Copperfield, and a slew of black, Asian, minority ethnic actors like Benedict Wong, Rosalind Elazar, and Nikki Amuka Bird rounding out the cast. My apologies if I mispronounced any of those names. Notice that there's never calls for recasting of non-white historical figures or fictional characters with white actors, and when there is, it's called whitewashing. Chris Dangerfield.
Yeah, because it's been going on for decades. There was a screenwriter, and just so you guys know, I'm not making this up. Screenwriter, white actress to play Rosa Parks? Is it Rosa Parks? No, was it? No, was it? Gosh, I don't remember. There's Harriet Tubman. Julia Roberts. There's a Harriet screenwriter. Julia Roberts was suggested by a studio executive to play abolitionist Harriet Tubman. I'm not making this up. I mean, this is something you would never hear from Dave Cullen. You know, when it's reversed, it's like no. It's only cultural vandalism when it's done to white people.
Also recently discussed this article, and he contrasted it with another article from the BBC. The following article is from 2015. In 2015, the BBC had an article, "When White Actors Play Other Races, the practice of whitewashing white actors in non-white roles is still prevalent in Hollywood, despite widespread condemnation and protest. Why does it continue?" Tom Brooks reports. That's quite the double standard, isn't it?
Double standard.
Ethnic Europeans can have their historical figures or fictional characters in their classic literary works recast with actors of different races, because our history appears to be problematic, I guess, and this will be celebrated. But recasting non-white...
I don't think I'll ever be able to talk with this guy. His subscriber count is way too high. This is why I just can't trust people who have so many subscribers. If I go, hey, let's talk about some of these films. What do you think about these guys? Like this person, 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 this movie, this person, this movie, this person, this movie. What do you think? Do you think that was okay? It's predominantly this ethnicity, and now there's replaced it with a white person. You think, the source material says this character, this race, this gender. Is it okay? Was it okay to have that replaced by a white character? He's probably not going to answer and say no, it's not okay. Who knows?
White characters or historical figures with white actors receives widespread condemnation and protest. Interesting. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Culture is the story we tell ourselves about ourselves, and it's clear that some iconic TV shows and films are reflections of the times we're living in. Our media appears to be reflecting the progressive, politically correct social engineering and demographic changes that our societies are currently going through.
Our societies have been going through this for decades, and you neglect to mention any of that. Let's look at the chat, because Kathy B is saying some good stuff. Yeah. I just think it's a divisive tactic, Kathy. And I would rather have the conversation about why this is occurring and whether it's okay to, if it's just a one-way thing, right? If it's okay for non-white characters to be done with white actors or actresses, is it okay the other way around? And whether if it's just one way towards his race, or if it's not, then you've got, of course, racism. But for me, we should choose. Should we allow it both happen? Like, we should allow it for all races to happen. It's just kind of like comedians, right? When comedians they really joke about racism and different races and stereotypes and stuff like that. But they don't like focus on one, unless like there's really racist comedians. But comedians make fun of all races, and I think most people are okay with that. They realize, hey, the boundaries are broken across all aisles, so it's fine. I think where the problem is when you just focus on one race, and that's maybe spread out a little bit. And maybe that's the case with acting. Right? It doesn't matter if you as long as you open up to anybody or whatever. It just doesn't matter. Or you close it up and say no. But then you've got the whole idea of, well, you got freedom of expression, or don't you? So for me, it's like, hey, it's open season for everybody. That's my mentality. Let's not close it up, because that just opens a whole can of worms. And I think this article does it really well. And I'm going to go through one video, and then I'm going to go to this article. It does a good job of what we should be talking about. And this is like an 18-minute thing, but let's see until I get tired of it. We're probably going to experience the same thing. Overlord DVD, don't know his real name, don't know his face, so I'm not going to concentrate too much on it.
Fandom can be a tricky thing. There are Star Wars fans, Star Trek fans, Doctor Who fans, and while there is some overlap of these fandoms, usually an individual will favor one over all the others. The effect being, when Kurtzman destroyed Star Trek with his arrogance and incompetence, Who fans shrugged because it wasn't their fight, And now that Chris Chibnall fundamentally violated and ultimately destroyed Doctor Who this past Sunday in a horrific retcon of history that the franchise will never recover from, I'm sure most Star Wars fans didn't notice. This is unfortunate. We are all brothers and sisters in fandom, and what diminishes my brother's fandom surely diminishes me. I am in the rare position of being a fan of all three franchises, and so I hope to make everyone understand in this video that we are all under assault by these filthy retcon men, these corporate slugs who are right under our noses, stealing our dreams, warping them beyond all recognition, and selling them back to us under the false label of social progress.
I agree with that mentality so far.
The destruction of Doctor Who, Star Trek, and Star Wars are all nothing less than cultural appropriation in the most literal sense. It is nothing less than the theft of our dreams.
But our dreams, it's like everybody's dreams, or just one specific race dreams. Like, one of the things that I really irked me in the past as well is when subject to racism. Heck, I'm Korean. I was born in Houston, Texas. Moved up to Seattle, Washington, Federal Way, Washington, and whatever. Grew up with a lot of racism. I think a lot of people always the white people that said, "Why don't you go back to your own country?" And I was like, "Why don't you go back to your own country?" It's like, look, the inhabitants of United States were Native Americans, and where they came from was from Asia. So basically, this is part of my country. You, on the other hand, came all the way from Europe, landed here, brought over black people, and you tell them to go back to their own country too. And then you also pretty much destroy the native inhabitants of this country and put them into little reservations. And if there's probably one race that should go back to their own country in the United States, yeah. But I don't look. It's one of those weird, ironic things that people say, which they don't really quite think about, and but they don't think about it. It's like they don't get it. And it's like, look, we didn't come here. I'm not my ancestors. We didn't. Or same with you. It's like, I was born in Houston, Texas. Going back to my own country would be here, exactly where I am. Where were you born? What, New Jersey or wherever, Texas? Or maybe you were actually born in like outside the country and going, why don't you go back to your own country? Like, people don't really think about it. They're just kind of dumb in some ways. But yeah, it's like, look, the U.S. is kind of a melting pot. People migrated here, and for good reason. They had to kind of coexist with so many different types of ethnicities, and things worked out pretty well. You know, despite a lot of messes and stuff like that occurred, you know, people got along with each other. You know, you got cross-cultural marriages and things like that, and I think that's a good thing. If you want to stay traditional, that's also an option. That's fine. No one's forcing you to marry outside your comfort zone or have sex with outside your comfort zone, whatever. It's your own choice. And people who get angry about what other people's choices are just kind of like mind-boggling. Like, no one's forcing you to do anything except for the control systems, of course. They force you. But there are some choices that you have that aren't forced. And, like, you don't even have to watch any of these shows. I know you watch them to comment on them and get a lot of views and you get your money that way. Fine. But yeah, let's keep going.
It's laughable to me that the very people guilty of the most egregious cultural appropriation possible are the same ones who complain about women dressing up as sexy Indians on Halloween, as if wearing the cultural garb of a costume can compare to literally rewriting history. Yet this is what is happening to all of our modern myths, all of which are being retconned out of existence by a bunch of feckless cultural vandals so convinced of the rightness of their woke agenda and so contemptuous of everything that came before, including our culture, including us. They are actively erasing our cultural history with the ruthless efficiency of the Ministry of Information in Orwell's 1984. Consider, in this final episode of Doctor Who, and even though they're doing more of them, it's simply necrophilia at this point. The franchise is dead. Chibnall completely destroys all of Doctor Who history with one simple historical retcon. He reveals that before Hartnell, before Series 1 of Doctor Who even began, the first Doctor was a woman. And not only a woman, since Chibnall already turned the Doctor into a woman and wanted to go ahead and win the virtue signaling sweepstakes, he made the first Doctor, the original Doctor, a woman of color. Because to Chibnall and his ilk, people are really only check marks, and he has reduced the Doctor to a propaganda talking point at woke cocktail parties. So at the end of Doctor Who, as it lies on its deathbed, when it's been slowly bled by bad writers, violated by woke wonders, and whittled down to irrelevance by incompetence, Chibnall goes ahead and dresses the corpse in drag, desecrates it with lies about its life, and takes compromising pictures of it to alter its reputation in history as it lies there dying, all out of a loathing of the past, a fundamental hatred of not only Doctor Who, but of all the fans of the Doctor stretching back to 1963 and the culture.
Now, in some ways I agree, because I mean, Doctor Who, like I agreed with Dave Cullen on this one too. It's just total retcon, just no purpose behind it, bad writing. If there was some good writing, I think most people would be okay with it. The whole retcon, it'd be like if, again, let's go back to another character, Batman. Let's say Bruce Wayne, the original Batman wasn't Bruce Wayne. What if they retcon that and saying, no, you know what? There was a mantle of Batman before Bruce Wayne, and Bruce Wayne stole it from someone else, and it was like, maybe it was a black woman, even though it's kind of dumb because it's like, well, it would have to have been a black woman, black bat woman. He goes, well, why don't I make a Batman out of it? So it really depends on the writing and whether a retcon or a reboot or whatever is good or not. It's just like Captain America, Steve Rogers, like when they retconned in the idea of like Steve Rogers was, Hail Hydra type of thing. A lot of people were against this. Like, no, he wasn't an infiltrated Hydra person. There's got to be a catch. I don't know. I never got interested in reading that, whether it was a catch or not, or he really was a Hydra informant, or maybe the twist is that Hydra were always kind of good guys acting like bad guys type of thing, So who knows? Acoustic Steve-O, good writing can make any cast of good characters good, regardless of race and gender. Correct. Man, yeah, I'm kind of tired of listening to it. Anyway, the links are all there if you want to listen to it. Here's something that I read that was kind of an interesting take, which I really wanted to get to. This is an opinion piece by Hollywood in Toto, which I never heard of before. It just came up in one of my feeds, Google searches, by hit guest contributors. So no, I think it's someone anonymous. How cultural appropriation crushes Hollywood. Social justice warriors wield identity politics like a cut goal, and we're all the worst for it. When leaked audio revealed Los Angeles acting coach Leslie Kahn urging an out-of-work Jewish actress to change her name to Rosa Ramirez. Social justice piranhas went into a Twitter frenzy. As one might expect, Kahn promptly posted an apology, complete with a nice pledge to diversity and inclusion, showing she had stepped back into conformity. Little did she know her public shame was just getting started. This is white privilege to the max. Now that Latinos are getting more recognition in jobs, here comes the white people trying to steal them. One says, no, apology not accepted. How dare you, as an ethnically ambiguous Hispanic woman, I say shame on you. Another says, my ethnicity is not a costume that you can capitalize on. You'll never get any work again. You're done. I mean, imagine if I wanted to get work in Hollywood and I cast myself as, I don't know, some white name or something. It's like, yeah. Just to get a job. It's like, look, I'm not Asian. Look at my name. It's Max Smith. There aren't any Asians named Max Smith. I assure you, I am not Asian. They look at me. It's like, you definitely look Asian. It's like, look, you're starting to get on my nerves. I mean, what a world. Politically correct zealots are convinced of the superiority of their twisted morality whenever they call someone out, making an example of Khan signals to actors they had better think twice before attempting to escape their racial and ethnic identity boxes. Interestingly, this is one of the great hypocrisies of the PC movement to hail diversity, but ultimately keep certain individuals in their place by reinforcing the various stereotypes they claim they want to transcend. Yeah, see hypocrisy everywhere. This reminds me of the fallacy of cultural appropriation, people borrowing from cultures they don't come from. However, the concept of appropriation has since been applied to actors who are increasingly accused of stealing opportunities from marginalized groups. Now, America is a melting pot, right? And we have to live together because, especially if you're poor. If you're poor, you don't really get to choose a place where you really want to live or a neighborhood. You just kind of have to go with what you can afford. In poor neighborhoods, there's going to be whites, blacks, Asians, Hispanics, natives, and whatever. It's just the way it is. And so, but we also hang out with each other. You know, when you're a kid, you just want to find people who will play with each other, with you, you know, you just want to play with each other, and you don't want to fight, and you stay away from people who want to fight you. And it's we borrow stuff all the time from each other, you know. It's like they want to know what kimchi tastes like, they want to try gabi, they want to learn some Korean, like maybe taekwondo, like teach me a kick, teach me a punch. Is like what do you guys, you know, you guys wear gis? That's awesome, let me wear a gi. I never wore a gi, but you know, things like that, like ninja costume, can you make me a ninja costume? And it's like they're really interested in it, so it's like, why not share some of the stuff that comes from my parents' culture, and you know, things I think is like, that's, I think people like it, they should be able to use it, you know. And like, it's like, show me how to make a taco or burrito, I want to taste that. Or you know, their cultural heritage that they grew up with, is like, share some of that, I'm interested, you know. And we all just share with each other, you know. Same thing when you've got instructors or teachers that are from different backgrounds, especially with martial arts. Martial arts is very cultural, you know. Each culture has their own specific type of martial art, if not one, a couple. And they're going to train students of all ethnicities. And, you know, you want to honor that. And when you train under whoever's teaching you, you kind of become appropriated to that culture, to that type of, that way of life. And to say, hey, that's racist, why are you doing Asian things, you're white. It's like, well, my teacher is from so and so. And Steve, hey, thanks, Kathy B. So it's like, you would just be a bad student if you didn't really want to live the type of life that your teacher provides that might make your life more positive. And just because it came from Asia or South America or Europe, as long as there's a good reasoning for it, positive message for it, take it. Take that mantle as your own, and that's positive. It's always a good thing. And then, but when we see very PC SJWs saying, "How dare you?" It's like, what? This is a positive thing, right? It's not taking it as like perceiving it as something negative or making fun of it. It's like, I really want to adapt it to my way of life. That's a very positive thing. So yeah, I can see where it can get pretty bad. And they are also going by the same stereotypes. It's like they're seeing a stereotype, which is a stereotype, and they're calling someone out on the stereotype and not the actual reality of the situation. Whew, things get really weird nowadays, don't they? Anyways, this reminds me of the fallacy of cultural appropriation, people borrowing from cultures they don't come from. However, the concept of appropriation has been applied to actors who are increasingly focused on stealing opportunities for marginalized groups. For example, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson came under fire after announcing he would produce and star in a movie about the legendary folk hero John Henry, a slave turned tough-as-nails railroad worker. The problem, Johnson, who has a black father and Samoan mother, is apparently not black enough to play the darker-skinned fictional character. He was asked to step down to give a darker-skinned black person a chance to play the role. Zoe Saldana, a light-skinned black actress with Dominican, Haitian, and Puerto Rican roots, was viciously attacked for accepting the role of legendary soul singer Nina Simone, who also happened to have dark skin. In fact, Saldana was accused of performing in blackface because of the darker makeup and prosthetic nose she wore in the movie. Fortunately, Saldana stood her ground. "There's no one way to be black," she said in response to the backlash. "I made a choice. Do I continue passing on the script and hope that the right black person will do it?" Good points, right? Is it morally wrong for light-skinned black actors to play dark-skinned black characters? What about when non-white actors were cast as our nation's white founding fathers in the Broadway musical Hamilton? To me, either all actors are free to act or they're not. See, that's the good part. Where the conversation needs to be had. And again, it alludes to the same thing with comedians. You either make no racial jokes, or you make racial jokes for every race, right? And to me, it's going to be open it up so you can make fun of all races. Let's not limit speech in any way. All right. Hamilton producers made a creative choice by casting actors of color, and audiences responded favorably. What's morally wrong is to force restrictions on some actors and not others, especially on the basis of skin color. Even superstar Will Smith faced that challenge when some deemed him too light-skinned to portray the father of Serena and Venus Williams. The fact is, anytime a person's creativity in the performing arts is restricted, the entire process ceases to a free and creative endeavor. It's probably meant to be ceases to be a free and creative endeavor and instead becomes a political one. Unfortunately, identity politics doesn't stop at the color of one's skin. Actor Jake Whitehall was fiercely criticized after being cast as Disney's first openly gay character in the movie Jungle Cruise because Whitehall isn't really gay. Jake Gyllenhaal, a non-disabled actor, also took heat for taking on the real-life role of Jeff Bauman, a man who lost both legs in the Boston Marathon bombings. Then there's Scarlett Johansson, cast as a transgendered character in the film until activists demanded she step down to make room for a real transgendered actor. Johansson surrendered to the pressure. Ask any radical activist about the complexities of how talent, bankability, and a myriad of other factors play into the success or failure of a given movie, and you're likely to get the middle finger. In truth, Johansson's impressive box office draw could have ensured the movie reached a wider audience, but that wasn't good enough for the social engineering fanatics. In the end, their own ignorance killed the movie, not to mention a lot of work for other people. Hollywood used to be a place where creative freedom was cherished. It was a place where actors could actually play characters different from themselves without ever having to worry about being harassed on social media or anywhere else. Who changed the rules? Good, yeah. It's kind of what I wanted to. Who changed the rules? Individuals who think of themselves as victims actively feed the negative psychological dependency of their victimhood, and believing they're powerless to change it, conveniently use it as a source of identity to extract cultural power. But there also exists an actual pecking order based on one's supposed victimhood status. Very good, yeah. And we don't need any of the negative psychological stuff. It's all part of an insidious ploy to further divide and exploit people. Oh man, this guy gets it, whoever this is. Similar to others with respect to superficial attributes such as skin color or sexual preference, which says nothing about their value as an individual. The latest trendy word for this is intersectionality. Translation, another Marxist redistributionist scheme. Think of it this way. If you identify as a straight white male, you're at the very bottom of the social hierarchy. However, if you're a black gay male, you just score some victim points. Bisexual Hispanic female, now you're getting somewhere. Even dark-skinned blacks occupy a higher status position than light-skinned blacks because of their supposed interracial white privilege. The more victim points one scores, the greater justification to impose censorship and forbid certain groups from participating in certain activities. Does this sound conducive to freedom of expression in the liberal performing arts? Yeah, so if it was bad when it happened to you, it's bad when it's happening to others. Hopefully this person is saying things the same way. This kind of negative cultural power is maintained through political correctness, a behavior modification tool that threatens individuals with shaming and social rejection when they act or speak out against PC. So Icon posted an apology letter and Johansson walked away from a movie role. Incredibly, when Business Insider columnist Daniela Greenbaum wrote her essay in support of Johansson's casting, editors feared it was too offensive and pulled it from publication. No wonder the point of PC is to achieve conformity of thought, not freedom of thought. Ah, that's a good one. Imagine if military characters could only be played by those with military experience. Christians played by real Christians, or liberals were no longer allowed to be cast as conservatives. Imagine everyone being forbidden to appropriate accents. It sounds a bit over the top. It's not, according to some in Hollywood. Yeah, that's just... Imagine if I just started talking in a southern drawl and people would be like, dude, that's racist. I'm saying, well... I am from the South. You know, where would that be? Houston, Texas? It's like, Houston, Texas ain't the South. It's like, who gets to judge what's South or not? what Southern accents are okay from what geographical region? Yeah. See, because when all of that happens, it's like, there has to be a mandate or something like that, right? Who's in charge of making the call that it's okay to speak with a southern drawl in these southern states, but or areas and not in other southern areas? Who says you can speak with, any of that stuff? Someone has to make up the rules, and who's that someone? It's not society, right? It's not everyone voting on it. It's not a democracy point of call, So it's just it's a good point. If actors no longer have the freedom to play characters different from themselves, then real acting is already dead. Without the freedom to play, other legitimate opportunities to experience empathy are also destroyed. And also, it's a good learning experience for a lot of people. I mean, imagine if you're an Asian, right, and you portray yourself as an Asian that gets mistaken for an African and becomes a slave, and you realize, dude, I didn't know blacks had it that bad as being slaves. That changes a person, right? And that's a good thing. It's a positive idea. It's like they realize that what others had to go through, type of thing. Because if you're just going to be in your safety zone, you're really not going to understand a lot of things in life. Isn't this what compels great actors to take on certain characters? They embrace the cultural and intellectual challenges that require them to identify with the characters, making artistic choices in order to give audiences an authentic portrayal. Actress Catherine Zeta-Jones was cast as a Spanish beauty opposite Latin leading man Antonio Banderas in The Mask of Zorro. 8 years later, I was conducting field work in Hollywood. I asked well-known black casting director Tannen and her casting assistant Shara, both pseudonyms, whether a Hispanic performer should have been cast instead. Tannen: I thought Zeta was Hispanic. So did I. And I didn't find out until I was reading about Traffic that they were talking about her using her natural Welsh accent, and I went, her what? Her Welsh? Isn't she Latino Welsh? Wait, I don't understand. But she still looks Latino to me. Kimberly, sure. Shara, it's fine. It's a fine line for me. Well, like with that, it didn't really bother me that she was playing that because she seemed authentically Latin. Looks Latin? Authentically Latin? Obviously, there are some very influential people in Hollywood who don't agree with the current PC order. When and how many of these individuals will come out of Hollywood's PC closet is anyone's guess. Nevertheless, the takeaway is simple. Much like Broadway hit Hamilton, the fact that Zeta-Jones was able to reprise her role in a sequel to Legend of Zorro is testament to how favorable her casting had been received by moviegoers. Frankly, some people just need to get over themselves. It's a privilege to be living and working in America. As long as we are free to think, speak, create, there will always be unequal outcomes precisely because of the diverse choices each of us make and the individual tenacity we apply to them. That's real artistic freedom, not oppression. And I just have to, whoever it is that wrote this, maybe that's Kimberly Bloom Johnson, is an actress turned cultural media anthropologist. He's also the author of Hollywood's White Identity Crisis and said the movie and television industry's dash to diversity and what it means to America forthcoming. Maybe that's her that wrote this, but whoever wrote this article I think it did a good job. It's like we either limit everybody or we allow everybody to have no limits, and that's the real question here. And if we limit, if we decide to limit what it is, who decides on the limiting, right? Are we gonna all vote on it? Are we gonna vote for representatives who will vote on it? The systems of control just somehow just choose on themselves and everyone just has to obey. Like, that becomes a problem because who's the deciding factor on what these little things are gonna be, right? So it should be a free-for-all. And I think, but part of that free-for-all is being able to speak out when something is being some faction, some group, whatever, some individual just being picked on, and people should have the bravery and tenacity to speak out about it if it's going on. Just that's why I put the Martin Niemöller quote. First they came for socialists, trade unionists, Jews, because you weren't one of them, but they came for me. No one was able to speak. So that's what happens when oppression happens, right? And you're going to be too afraid to speak out. Whoever's being oppressive, you're going to be afraid to speak out because it's still not right, but because you're not a part of it, you're just not going to worry about it. But once, unfortunately, it starts happening to you, there's just no one left to say, that's not right. This should be, whatever's not right, it should be pointed out that it's not right. And not when it's just your turn. Because I think, but then there's also the problem. I remember, gosh, why am I having a blank? But anyways, sometimes one group uses another group, right? It's like, let's like put in politics is horrible. But in politics, like, the blacks would kind of associate with other minority groups, like the LGBTQ and stuff. And then once they helped and the LGBTQ got what they wanted, they go, great, awesome. And then the blacks are going, well, can you help us now? We kind of gave you a platform to stand on so your voices could be heard, but we still haven't got what we wanted. And then they're like, look, we can't do anything for you. I'm sorry. We're still wanting more. And so another group is just, it's just a bad thing in general when you seek help, you get helped, and then the ones that help you ask help in return, and you just fail or neglect to help them back. It's just, that's a screwy thing to do. It sucks. It happens. And it happens in politics. It happens in a lot of stuff. Let's look at some of the chat. Let's move it back a little bit. Shoot. I can't move it back on that part. Anyways, let's just start where we see it on the screen. Acoustic Stevo, I don't want anything to do with that hierarchy or anyone that buys into it. Kathy B, in fact, mostly due to Karl May's books. Native American culture is very much alive in Europe. Acoustic Stevo, bring on the shaming, just saying the only way we get past this is we don't let others think about us. What others think about us have any power over us at all. Yeah, exactly. I never cared about what other people said about me, and I still don't. And that leaves them so powerless. I just laugh. And it depends on what I'm doing. Like, if people make fun of me, if I'm playing a game and I'm going against them, because there's trash talking, right? It's just to throw someone off someone's game. Usually that's what it's for. For me, I just stay quiet and I demolish them in what I'm doing because I just become more competitive. And then what happens is they just start shutting up because they realize the trash talking doesn't work and they're getting trounced and they got nothing to say. And if they keep talking, it's like, I just say something simple like, man, if your gaming was better than your trash talking, it might have been a contest, so just those little one-liners, they just get crushed. But most of the time, if they shut up and they stop their trash talking, I don't really say anything. I just say good game. But if they just say something, if they just say something back, they just egg me on a little bit more. After the game is all said and done, I'll just throw one little trash talk at the end, and then hopefully that teaches them a little bit of humility. Because for me, it's more. I don't know why people do it. Some people do it, get a kick out of it. Some people do it just to try to mess someone up. But most of the time, whenever we're doing something for enjoyment, it's for enjoyment. And then someone takes it a little bit too aggressive, and it no longer becomes an enjoyment thing, but a competition. Very competitive things aren't enjoyable. Well, at least not for me. I'm not competitive. I don't get a joy out of being competitive unless it's just a fun competition, like a mock competition, like when I race with my daughter and go, who's gonna be first? I'm gonna be first. You're a slowpoke. And then of course I let her win. You go, oh, how did you run so fast? So stuff like that. That type of faux competitiveness is just all for enjoyment. But there's some people out there, they're competitive or ambitious and really want to bring people down a notch so they could rise up, and that sucks. Let's see some more. Kathy B. Of course, we have Sunbear, the Bear Tribe, Vince LeDuc. It's good that communities have that freedom. Corporate slugs are. My worst was being called squaw at Walmart. I agree with Bond. Beautiful children. Oh, sorry, he said Repcon. And, I've been called Gook in Chink. And for me, I always like to have fun with that. It's like, if I'm called Gook, it's like, yeah, I'm Hanguk. But Chink is like, no, isn't that for Chinese? I'm Korean. And they go, well, y'all look alike. It's like, I guess. I got a lot, like, a retort for that. Y'all look alike. It was like I guess I would just say I don't know how you survive. That would probably be my reply. But gook, I understand that. That probably makes more sense because I always tell my earlier streams that I think gook was termed for Koreans and just got applied to all Asians because probably during the Korean War, a lot of American military got stationed in Korea, and they just all the people in Korea. Koreans call themselves Hanguk. Koreans call Americans Miguk. So whenever they talk to an American or talking about an American, the Americans keep hearing Miguk. And so in American, they're going to go, hey, he's saying he's gook. So we'll call him gook. So anyways, that's where I think it all got started with that. I never watched Doctor Who, Kathy. I may have to, but then knowing how it ends up, I just have to not watch like the last couple of seasons, I guess. I don't want to be disappointed. It's like I think Grant Jarvis mentioned, do you like the first 2 episodes, Picard? The first episode is free. I don't know, because some of the things I don't agree with. But anyways, that was my topic. It's going to tie into kind of Korean. The whole reason why I want to do this and not the Korean mythology tie-in stuff is it does tie into mythologies, because once you start studying mythologies from different cultures, especially ancient cultures and stuff, you'll see so many similarities and character traits and stuff like that. Is like, well, say you want a typical one of these characters. Well, we've got that character too in, say, Korea, and that character exists also in Japan. That character exists in Norway, and in the natives. It's like that character exists pretty much everywhere. So to say it's just a one specific region's heroic tale, it doesn't quite make sense, right? Because that heroic trait story has just been spread different cultures in different times, and they had no way of actually, as far as our history being told to us as it is, we were told that they didn't know each other. Like, they couldn't have traveled to each other with the transportation available at that time, communication at that time. There's no way they could have crossed the entire Atlantic or Pacific and known where they were and able to sail all the way back in the late, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 years ago type of stuff. So, you can't really take ownage of all that. And who owns the land? Is it just the current person? Is it the government that says they own it? Is it the ones who owned it before, but they got forced out of it? Is it nobody's? Is it everybody's? Anyways. Last thing I'm going to read is the live chat. My uncle was in Korea War, Grant Jarvis. Got to be earlier in television, there were stereotypes, but many didn't see it as such. Yeah, like the cartoons. Kathy B, I'm watching some of the old cartoons I used to watch. There are some stereotypes there. Why is he blaming just SJWs? There's AIM and more. What's AIM? I don't know that acronym. Grant Jarvis, number of Roman emperors were African and others were of Arab origin. I can see that. I mean, it was a huge region. I mean, when your empire spans out and conquers upwards of 10 or 20 countries, and you incorporate them into your empire and your culture, you're going to get a lot of descendants with mixed heritage or heritage of one area. Grant, if we go by DNA origins, most came out of Africa, or so they say. Grant Jarvis, the African descended Emperor Servius, was actually in England when declared emperor. Anyways, we should go through written history versus what was more likely history, you know, type of thing. Anyways, that's it for tonight's. Wow, an hour 41 minutes. That was longer than I thought it would. Good thing I didn't play back all the videos. All right. Well, none of my things ever appear to be short, but yeah, let's stop fighting against each other, and you know, the ones who are actually perpetuating. Sorry, us fighting each other, and aim our negative or our positive. Maybe let's just aim positively. Our grief with them or our beef. And do it that way and see where that goes, because creativity through combination and not through division. That's where we want to be. All right. Have a good night, everybody.